Slayers film.
So this week we have quite a few different questions that were submitted to us, but some of the ones that stuck out to us the most was, what if Ahsoka didn't leave the Jedi Order, and what if she accompanied Obi-Wan Kenobi to Mustafar? And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because I know that you're a huge TCW fan. I enjoy TCW, but I don't enjoy every single arc. There's quite a few arcs in there where I'm just like, I'll just kind of skip over this while I'm sitting on the couch, eating popcorn or whatever. Yeah. But I know that you're huge into all the Clone Wars what if stories or what if stuff in general. You're huge in fan fiction. I think I've told you before that I'll binge watch your videos while I'm cooking dinner or whatever. I'll just play it in the background over a Bluetooth speaker. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so for me, I agree. There are a couple Clone Wars arcs that are a little rough. Specifically the ones when that are kind of useless to the whole overarching story of the Clone Wars, when you got the droids running around, their shenanigans.
The droid shenanigans.
I tend to skip over those, because it is what it is. But overall, Clone Wars is, when I was younger, I didn't really appreciate it as much. But as time has gone on, and I'm rewatching them as the new season just came out, I've realized just how I should say how rich they are, because they feel like they do kind of feel like a separate universe to the Star Wars movies, but it also feels like it works really well as kind of if you never watched the movies before, kids could definitely get brought into the show, and not just kids. I should say kids on the first couple seasons, but after that, the show kind of aged with its audience, and I feel that anyone can really get into it. Even if you haven't seen the movies. So that's pretty cool that the show can stand on its own without having the movies there as well.
It's kind of like a Harry Potter situation where the movies start off very young oriented, and by the third movie, main characters are dying and all this other stuff that just makes you sad.
It gets mature with its audience. And the funny thing about Harry Potter was I think Harry Potter, he's 2 or 3 years older than me, so I kind of aged with him. So I would understand that idea that you're aging with Harry Potter, you are going to school with him and growing with him. So that's pretty cool that that franchise can do that. In fact, I haven't actually seen that franchise for a while.
We watch it basically every Halloween, and for some reason I associate it with Christmas. I think it's because every movie they showcase the Christmas season and stuff like that. For some reason we always watch it as a family during Christmas, even though it's not really a Christmas movie.
I think the last time I saw one was in 2012. It's been years, maybe even longer than that.
And I'm not a huge Potterhead in general. I can watch it and I enjoy it, but it's not something that I care about in the same way that I care about Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate it.
Yes,
but I'm not a massive diehard fan for it.
I think that a lot of people think about Harry Potter the same way they think about Ahsoka. I feel like a lot of kids who were watching the Clone Wars when it first came out, they were around Ahsoka's age, and as the story progressed and as it got further on, they aged with Ahsoka. I think it's a similar situation to Harry Potter.
So that's a good comparison to make with Ahsoka being so young and growing into the adult she becomes.
One of the issues that I had with the movie when it came out was I think I was 17 years old. That's dating me. I think it was either 17 or 18 years old. And I was I like it because it's more Star Wars, but it's not made for me. But
that's true.
Yeah. But now I love Ahsoka. I absolutely adore that character. And I think that people that are detractors of her are a lot of more old school expanded universe fans who don't like the idea that Anakin has a Padawan, which I can sort of appreciate, but I think it adds more depth to his character because he's very robotic in episode 2 and 3. He's barely likable at all. So they definitely make him more of a likable character in the Clone Wars show. But I wanted to get your opinion about what you think would have happened if Ahsoka were to have been more involved in the fall of Anakin Skywalker, because now we know that where she was during Order 66. We know what happens to her and to Darth Maul and to all the clone troopers who were close to her. We have a better understanding of what happens there because finally the Clone Wars got its last season. We finally get to see what happens, but I wanted to pick your brain about that.
Okay, so I am under the belief, if we're talking about canon Anakin, no matter what, he was destined to become Vader.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're looking at it from a narrative standpoint, he, no matter what would have happened, had Obi-Wan been around when, or he would have went with Obi-Wan to kill Grievous, or he would have went to kill Grievous and came back, or whatever the case, Anakin would have become Vader. I think the only real factor for me, anyways, besides his mother dying, of course, was, we talked about this in our previous podcast, the Duel of the Fates. When Qui-Gon died, that was like, in my opinion, one of his final, like his final anchors before he turned to the dark side. And of course his mother passing, that was it. That was the final anchor, I would say. Of course, it takes a little bit before, we see the Clone Wars, and of course he gains another anchor through Ahsoka. And so when he loses Ahsoka, that's like his last anchor lost. So it depends on how you want to view the situation. At the end of the day, I'd like to believe that Anakin wouldn't turn to the dark side because Ahsoka would kind of be like his little sister. He was responsible for her, and he loves her. You know what I mean? And I'd like to believe that he wouldn't turn the dark side. But while he likes Ahsoka, he loves Padme. I should say he loves Ahsoka as a sister. Padme is his soulmate. You know what I mean?
And she's pregnant. Like she's currently carrying what he perceives to be his single child, but in reality it's Luke and Leia.
Yeah, and the only way to save her was, only way to save her and, of course the kids with her, was to follow Palpatine, even if he wasn't necessarily wanting to become, a Sith Lord. It was the path to saving his wife and his unborn child. Well, children, but like you said,
he thinks that it's one kid.
It's really tough. I mean, for my one, my one story I wrote with the what if the Jedi Council survived Order 66, that type of situation. Anakin, Mace Windu got back to the temple and cleared out the temple before Anakin went to kill the younglings. And in my opinion, I think while him betraying Mace was like one step closer to the edge, it was when he was actually, in the temple, slaying all the Jedis, killing everyone else who got in his way. That was kind of when Vader finally took over. That's when Anakin stepped off the edge and Vader flew. I guess you could use that as a analogy. Yeah. But so that was kind of how I viewed that situation. So I feel like with my story, when Anakin didn't kill any Jedi, he killed the Separatist leaders, of course, but in the end of the day, he didn't kill the children. He didn't take that extra step that pushed him over to the dark side completely. And so I think when it comes down to it, it's not as much as if Ahsoka would have stayed as a Jedi, as much as if Anakin wouldn't have done the purging of the Jedi temple. I think that was it. That was when he became Vader. I guess it could be kind of, refuted that it was when he, killed Mace or turned against Mace. But that's how I view it. And I think that was the actual reason. So after some convincing, had he not killed and fully went on to the full dark side and killed the Jedi he once called, like, I guess you could say family, even though he felt very alienated by them, he would have stayed Anakin. And Ahsoka probably would have had a big role in keeping him in the light. But it is tough to say. It all is a circumstantial of the situation of where they're at. So even if Anakin would have turned the dark side right away, I do think he would have turned later on for a different reason. Even if Palpatine had to orchestrate the Ahsoka's death or something in front of his eyes or something like that, just to get him over the edge. I don't know.
And I think that what a lot of people maybe don't think about when it comes to Anakin is throughout a lot of his life, he felt powerless. And turning to the dark side, he saw that like maybe as his own choice and him making his own decision to take upon his like own path. So I don't think that there was a lot of ways that he could have done that within the Jedi infrastructure. I think that he would have always tried to go his own way because he was doing that while he was in the Jedi Order. Like he was disobeying commands. He was being, a hot-headed Jedi Knight. And I think that he always craved freedom. And I think that he saw the Jedi and probably even to another extent like the Sith as a version of slavery.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Ahsoka staying in the Jedi Order would have stopped him from doing that. My big thing is, I know that he was... I don't know this, but I always question if he actually would have killed Ahsoka while he was in that transition between being Anakin and being Darth Vader. Because in Rebels, you see that he does try to like make like a death swing on Ahsoka. Like he does legitimately try to kill her, but he's like thoroughly lost at that point. He's no longer Anakin Skywalker at that point. He's very much Darth Vader. He's lost everything he's ever loved, and everything that he ever knew is gone, and now he is literally just a slave to Palpatine. But I wonder if, because he tried to kill Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Like he was out for blood. Like he definitely wanted that guy dead.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he would have tried to kill Ahsoka, because I feel like his relationship with Obi-Wan versus his relationship with Ahsoka is like completely different outlooks. Like I always view Anakin as kind of being like having borderline personality disorder, where he maybe doesn't necessarily like fundamentally have all of the morality that other people have, which a lot of that changes with TCW. Like they make him a lot more human. They make him a lot more, even kiltered. But in the original expanded universe, he's very much like there's something off with that guy. Like there's clearly something not right. And I don't know if maybe he would have viewed Ahsoka as still his little sister, even if Palpatine ordered him to kill her, because he must have thought that like if he went to the Jedi Temple and he killed all like the Jedi younglings and stuff like that, he must have been willing to go out of his way to find and kill Ahsoka. But I don't know that he actually would have gone through with it during that transition stage between cutting off Mace Windu's hand and killing all of like the Jedi Knights and the Jedi younglings. Yeah,
I mean, like I mentioned, I think when Ahsoka leaves the Order, Palpatine kind of is like, whew, well, that's one problem solved. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm just picturing Palpatine in his office, like wiping beads of sweat off. He's like, problem solved.
Yeah, like that's that. That takes care of one issue. And I think that honestly, Palpatine would have had Ahsoka killed for sure. She's clearly very important to Anakin. In the past, before the Clone Wars was even a show, you would view the situation completely differently. And I feel like with the Clone Wars, it adds a whole new element. I remember thinking like, wait, so Ahsoka is his new Padawan, and she's not in episode 3, but she's also not in episode 4 or 5 or 6. So from that, since she's a Jedi, that means that Anakin probably killed her in the Jedi Temple. Of course, we find out that's not the case. But I remember thinking like, I wonder if they're actually going to get to the point in the Clone Wars where Anakin kills Ahsoka, which would have been, interesting to touch on. But of course,
it would have been heartbreaking, like to see that like betrayal happen from somebody who viewed him as an older brother or even like a father figure.
Yeah. So I mean, even still, you got to wonder like Palpatine had to. I'm gonna guess Palpatine was still after Ahsoka secretly for a long time, because she was kind of like a bridge to Vader. And at the end of the Clone Wars, I don't know if you've seen the new season of Clone Wars, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end, the very last like scene is Vader finding Ahsoka's lightsaber, right? And him looking there like, oh, this is Ahsoka's saber. This is the last time I saw her. And in a way, you could hint towards that being like, we don't exactly know when that took place. I don't think they kind of said when that takes place. That could actually have taken place right before A New Hope, or right before, well, probably before A New Hope, or around that time, So in a way, you can now view Vader's turn back to the light as it started when Ahsoka appeared or something like that. I mean, it's kind of tough though, because when he comes to Rebels and then he goes to kill her and he doesn't know, like, he might know who she is, but he doesn't see Ahsoka anymore. He just sees a Jedi, you know? So
I still remember that first time that I saw that scene where, you know, she slashes his mask and he turns around and like says her name and stuff like that. I was like, I don't necessarily love Rebels. Rebels is very much for a younger audience, and there's a lot of episodes that I just don't. I'm like, this is just like kind of filler stuff. And there's quite a few episodes where I just feel like there's not really any stakes. Like people aren't, like, you know, main characters aren't necessarily dying. I don't really feel like anyone's in danger. But the stuff with Ahsoka and Anakin, like every time I think about it, like it gives me like chills a little bit. I'm like, oh my god, like that, all that stuff with Anakin and Ahsoka, like it's very clear to me, like from that one scene, he does think about like his past. He thinks about Ahsoka and he thinks about his relationship with her and the life he probably could have had. And then he just kind of remembers like the Republic's gone, the Jedi's gone. Even if I wanted to go with you and I wanted to still like, you know, go back to who I was, like there's no way that's possible anymore. And I kind of think that's like the driving force behind him finally making that like that leap in that duel to being like, I just have to kill you. I don't really have any other ways around this, because clearly Palpatine would question, well, why didn't you kill Ahsoka? If like you say you're a Sith Lord, like you want to theoretically usurp me one day, why wouldn't you kill Ahsoka? Like that would show weakness to Palpatine and all the other stuff. But it would be so fascinating to see like a Star Wars what if, like an Infinities kind of story. What if Ahsoka went with Obi-Wan Kenobi to Mustafar to confront Anakin? Like, would he have killed her there? Because his relationship with Obi-Wan at that point was so terrible. Like, they clearly hated each other. Well, like, Anakin seemingly hated Obi-Wan. But his relationship with Ahsoka, like, it was clear that he still thought so fondly of her, because his final gift to her was her lightsabers, but with his lightsaber colors. Like, he wanted her to have blue lightsabers because he viewed it as his kind of mark on her Jedi weapon. And I would be curious to see if he actually would have killed her on Mustafar, like while he was still in that like weird, oh my god, what have I done kind of stage. Because he very much, like, you can see, like, when he kills Mace Windu, he literally has a line, what have I done? Like, he's like finally being confronted by his decisions. Do you think that he would have killed Ahsoka on Mustafar?
So here's another thought that I have. Well, wait, I'll give you a little fun fact, a little FF for you here. So one of the initial things that George Lucas was going to write into the prequels, he of course cut it out, was the idea that Obi-Wan and Padme would have some sort of romantic relation as well, kind of like a King Arthur and Lancelot and Guinevere type of situation going on. Now, of course, he cut that out, and I think that's for the best, because that would definitely like mess with the whole story and the way the characters are viewed. But that kind of did carry on into that scene, because like when Padme first shows up with Obi-Wan, Anakin's like, really? You brought him here to kill me? And it's like, why else would Obi-Wan be standing there? And of course, Padme is like, wait, what the heck? And in a way, I guess you could say Obi-Wan accidentally got Padme killed because he revealed himself at the worst time. Yeah. But that's the way life goes sometimes, you know. But
sometimes you kill everyone you've ever known or loved.
And I always viewed Padme as like Anakin's last grip on the light. Yeah. And so when he views his light betraying him, that's it. You know, that's where Vader snaps in. Anakin's gone officially. When he chokes out his wife, the whole reason he turned to the dark side for in the first place, when he believes she's betrayed him, that's it. No more Anakin, it's now Vader. And you can kind of see like Vader, he's standing there like over like the lava pit, and he's still like questions himself if he's doing the right thing. And then when Padme first shows up, he's happy. You can see on his face like, Padme, hey, I'm so glad you're here. What are you doing here? And and of course Padme is trying to talk him out of the dark side. And then out of nowhere, Obi-Wan shows up, and Anakin's like, "Whoa, like what the heck? What is he doing here?" And she's like, "Wait, this isn't what I meant, you know." And of course, that's Vader who snaps in there. So by that point, right after he chokes Padme, that's it, and that's Vader. You know, Anakin's gone by that point. We don't see him again till we see little hints of him, of course, but we don't see him officially till Episode 6 after that. And with Padme dead, that's when, you know, Vader is allowed to live because, in a way, like I said, Padme is Anakin's light. So I view it this way. If Ahsoka and Obi-Wan were standing there instead of just Obi-Wan, maybe Anakin would be like, "Ahsoka, what are you doing here too?" Like, you know, he might have not just jumped to conclusions right away. But ultimately, if he would have turned to the dark side, he probably would have killed Ahsoka pretty quick. And that would be that. Ahsoka's a good fighter. She could keep up with Anakin, you know, especially like full on prime Mustafar angry Anakin. You know, Obi-Wan could barely keep up with him. So, I mean, it would have been it for her. So I guess it depends how you want to view it. I'd like to believe that Anakin would have been like, "Oh, I'm glad you both came. You know, I see this as you guys coming to, you know, comfort me, and less as Obi-Wan here by himself, ready to kill me."
Yeah, he probably viewed Obi-Wan being there as more of a confrontational thing because their relationship up to that point was like so tumultuous, and I would want to see how things would have played out if instead of Obi-Wan walking down that ramp, you know, "You have done that yourself," and all that whole rousing speech. I would be curious to see how things would have gone if Ahsoka walked down that ramp. And because like it's such a different relationship dynamic, you know, the way that you interact with like your parents is so different from how you interact with like your siblings. You're probably more willing to tell like your siblings like, "Oh, you know, like I snuck out and I did like X, Y, and Z or whatever." You're not going to go and like snitch yourself out to your parents. And like that's more of the dynamic he has with Obi-Wan. And Ahsoka has a different outside perspective of the Jedi because she saw that the Jedi had more or less lost their way, and that's why she left. And maybe she could have talked Anakin off of that ledge by being like, "Look, man, I get it. Like, I understand that the Jedi aren't right. Like, they're not giving you that clear pathway to like getting out of the situation." Like you know, like everyone's been in that situation where you've done something wrong, and like maybe when you're a little kid, like you break something, or you know, you're like steal a candy bar from a store or something like that, and you have like that clarification moment where you're like, "Oh no, I'm gonna get in a ton of trouble for this," and you try and do everything you possibly can like to get out of getting in trouble for it. And I kind of view that situation with Anakin as it's multi-layered. Anakin is, I think that he views himself as being a lot more, he has like kind of delusions of grandeur. He probably views himself, because I don't think that he views himself, he actually does literally view himself as being the most powerful Jedi. Like he doesn't understand there's difference between being wise and being powerful. And I kind of get from his dynamic with Obi-Wan that he maybe feels like, "Oh, Obi-Wan thinks that he's better than me, and Obi-Wan won't let me do this. Obi-Wan won't let me do that." And his relationship with Ahsoka is purely like, "Won't you come back to the Jedi Order? Like, won't you come back and like be my Padawan again? Like, won't you come back and be with me?" And maybe if Ahsoka showed up, he would have viewed that more of like, "Oh, this person is here to help me. This person is here they care about me." And I think that he viewed Obi-Wan as, this dude's just trying to control me, just like the rest of the Jedi Council was going to do. Because even though Obi-Wan like pulled Anakin aside and was like, "Hey, look, I know that them asking you to spy on the Chancellor isn't good. You still need to do it." So like, he's still part of that infrastructure. He's still part of that deeper underlying issue with the Jedi. And he's still part of that like system of perpetuating, you know, Anakin not being able to express himself how he wants to. They're not giving him the help that he needs. Like Yoda helps out a little bit, but he's not really able to fully dive into the fact that Anakin is clearly going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka has, at that point, has been out of the Jedi Order for a pretty decent chunk of time. And maybe she could have talked him off of that ledge, but at the same time, we wouldn't have gotten that excellent Obi-Wan speech at the end of that Mustafar fight. Which I think would be more of a hindrance than a help.
Would be more of a tragic than the actual story. More tragic than the actual fall of Anakin.
More tragic than the actual deaths of various Padawans.
Yeah, so ultimately, you know what? I would love to hear George Lucas's opinion on this, because he is the mastermind of the situation. He's the one who crafted this entire story. I still think that Palpatine would have found a way to hinder Ahsoka from meeting up with Anakin during that point where he needed Anakin to be as vulnerable as possible. Palpatine would have made sure to pull her away, keep her away, maybe even kill her, to make sure that he continues his process onto Darth Vader, because he spent way too much time, way too many years preparing Anakin for this situation, and it's finally coming to light. So imagine just getting right to the point right before Anakin's about to just truly be the guy you need him to be, and then him just getting halted by his previous Padawan you had forgotten to deal with. That would just, as Palpatine, that would piss me off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, I put so much work into this.
I tried so hard. It took me years to do this.
And then, I forgot about her. Man, she wasn't in the original story. Dang, it's a shame she just got written in. Man.
It's almost like she was written into to canon that previously had absolutely no idea that she existed before this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. But I'd like to hear George's thought on that.
My understanding is that he really enjoys that character a lot, but he's been, he's only done so many interviews since he sold Star Wars to Disney and stuff like that. And I know that he enjoys that character, and he clearly trusted Dave Filoni to captain that ship.
Yeah.
As basically I still would probably consider him the second coming of George Lucas. And I really enjoy Dave Filoni a lot. I think that he gets Star Wars. I think that he doesn't necessarily care about what came before in terms of the old expanded universe stuff, which for me sucks, but at the same time, I get it. It would be very difficult to adhere to all of years and years of history.
They changed Korriban to Moraban.
So apparently,
that bothered me.
Apparently they're like, no, it's the same planet. It's just they call it something different now. It's cool, but why would they call it something different?
Yeah, I know. Unless they're they hindered it. They changed the name because what it represented in the past. The Sith and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I get. I see. That would make sense. I just made that up. You know what I mean? So I'm okay with that explanation. If they want to give that explanation, that sounds good to me. Just give an explanation. Or just keep it Korriban.
And when in that whole arc where Yoda goes to Moraband and he interacts with Darth Bane and stuff like that, and he's like, I'm going to Moraband, the homeworld of the Sith. I'm like, but why? Why would they rename out of all of the things that I can understand, you don't want to adhere to the previous Clone Wars canon that was established in the Republic comic books and stuff like that, because it would limit so much of what you are able to write and what you're able to portray on screen, because there's only so many years the Clone Wars could have existed. There's only so much time between episode 2 and episode 3. So I get that, but out of all the weird little things that change, why change the name of an established planet that people know? Also, why change the look of Darth Bane? I understand that Darth Bane, just bald Darth Bane, maybe isn't the most intimidating human being to look at, but he has his Orbalisk armor in the books that is portrayed in various different fan art and comic books and stuff like that, where he looks super metal. He looks like a fantasy villain basically. You could have just designed the character to look like that, but instead you made him look like some weird Sith samurai man. So I've never really understood that either. There's just some changes that I feel aren't really necessary. They're just changing things to say, hey, this is different from, the previous stuff. and there's not really a lot of rhyme or reason behind changing it.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm not a Disney executive, so
I guess I understand that, because then you can. I understand changing something if you feel like you can, either add upon it or improve it of sorts. But just a name like that, it's so easy. It's so simple. Keep it Korriban. That's what everyone knows it as.
Exactly.
You're just confusing people, because I only found about this now since you told me. I'm sure I could have looked it up. You know what I mean? But like, since a lot of people, I consider that as like one of the parts in Clone Wars that bothers me is the fact that it feels like sometimes it doesn't really take care of its established canon. Now, not nearly like the new sequel trilogy. Like they break their established canon all the time. But the Clone Wars was under George Lucas, right? So that was his like job. Well, that was not his job, but that was his that was him. That was his story. So he should have made sure everything was not destroying his canon. But then again, I understand the whole argument that George Lucas had his own canon compared to the actual Star Wars canon and stuff like that. But something as simple as that, that's just an easy thing, And
his view of like the expanded universe seems to have changed from interview to interview. Like it seems like he really enjoyed he enjoyed certain stories. He would consider those canon, like in his own head potentially. He signed off on bringing the Emperor back to life in the Dark Empire comic book and stuff like that. So there are instances where he is very heavily involved in the expanded universe story, but at the same time, like he views it as, well, this is my, my intellectual property. I'm going to do whatever I want with it, basically, which I can respect, because there's an aspect of George Lucas that I really enjoy, that he's just a weird nerd. Like he's just a weird movie maker. He likes making his weird little films. And that's kind of how he viewed Star Wars. He viewed it as his own weird little science fiction film. He didn't necessarily view it as ours. And I understand that Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, Lord of the Rings fans, whatever, we all feel a certain amount of ownership of this property, like these various properties, because we've invested so much time and energy into, the canon, like the fandom of it. Like we're the ones that basically are continuing the legacy of these stories. Basically, if Star Wars had no fans, it would have never become what it is now. And people have been fans of Star Wars like in all varying different degrees, whether or not they enjoy comic books, just the movies, the TV shows, the books, whatever. But realistically, it is like the fans of these stories that continue its legacy. People grow up to become Star Wars authors, to become, comic book artists and all this different stuff, who continue the legacy of this story. So I've always seen like some things that George Lucas has done is almost like spitting in the face of like those fans. But at the same time, he was antagonized by fans for the prequels for so long. I could not handle that pressure. Like I could not handle, millions of people telling me like, hey, you ruined my life and you ruined my childhood. Like I could not. That's something that, like, dude, of course I would go out and buy a ranch out in the middle of nowhere and just live on that like you did.
This is my thought process. You know why we have the sequels now? Because people in the past complained about the prequels too much. And now look what we have now. You see? So exactly. all those original trilogy supremacists, look what you've done. You did George this. Lucas. You're the reason why. If you don't like the sequel trilogy, you're the reason why. So there you go. If you're watching, you're welcome.
And that's almost what that's almost what I respect about The Last Jedi is that, I mean, I to preface this, I don't like The Last Jedi, but there's certain, like, what I can respect about it is that Rian Johnson was almost just like, screw it, I'm just gonna make something super weird. Like, yeah, I still don't like the movie, but
you got to respect it at least. The same with George Lucas and the prequels. Regardless of how much you hated them or loved them, at the end of the day, he made the movies he wanted to make. So you have to respect the man for that. And I think people have come around to that idea now, especially someone like the OG original trilogy supremacists out there on YouTube, especially. They've come around. Not all of them, of course, but they've definitely come around, especially considering what they are seeing the actions, or seeing what their actions have caused. You know what I mean? They're seeing the effects of the actions they caused upon the fandom. So
so many
that's
many
why we have
people wanted.
like us. We're here to fight the good fight and to show the prequels are actually pretty good if you put your bias aside and you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
It's like the whole thing is like if you just watch them for what they are, they're very enjoyable. Like I've talked about this with you and Tad, just saying that episode 1's actually pretty good. Like I actually enjoy it like a lot. Like a lot of people want to complain about Jar Jar and all that stuff, and Anakin saying like now this is pod racing and all that stuff, but
this is pod racing. That sounds familiar.
It's still like a goofy, fun movie. Like it's super breezy and easy to get through. And I've told you this like 100 times, I think, that like I still think episode 2 is the most difficult Star Wars movie to get through. I would even say that for the sequel stuff. Like I would say that I dislike episode 2 more than I dislike any movie from the sequels, because at least the sequels have good acting across the board. At least the visual effects look amazing no matter what. There are points in episode 2 where I'm like, wow, this looks really dope. This looks really cool. But there's so much in it that I'm just like, can we just move on from this terrible scene?
It drags a lot. I don't know if you saw my reviews for that movie specifically or whatever, but since I did my review on it, I've actually come around to liking it more. But there's been times where I've tried to watch the movie and I've actually like stopped halfway through. I'm just like, you know what? I'll skip to the lightsaber fight at the end just to get the narrative cohesion of Anakin not being good enough for when episode 3 comes along and we see that he's got that full arc taken care of and now he has become the Jedi he was said he wanted to become. You get more of a payoff from that fight if you do that. But I understand the argument. I've since come around to a little more, but I still it's still rough in some places.
I watch episode 2 the same way that I watch episode 8. Like with episode 8, I skip over all of the stuff that's not Luke Skywalker and Rey. I basically just watch that portion of the film because I really like all that stuff. I think that Mark Hamill is amazing in it. I think it's the absolute best performance he's ever had in anything he's ever been in. Like I think that's like top tier Mark Hamill. And in episode 2, I watch certain parts of it, and then the rest of it, I'm like, I can take or leave the rest of this movie. But that's just my opinion. I know that a lot of people just love the prequels no matter what.
When it comes to Rey and Luke in episode 8, I actually do like Rey's character arc, even though I guess she's not really doing much of an arc. Like there's not much going on with her, but I actually like what's going on with her in the story. I think it's mostly because everyone else really doesn't have anything else going on. I like the idea of I like that Kylo and here's the thing. I don't know if it's good necessarily, but it feels like a relief when you're watching the other arcs going on. Like when you're watching Canto Bight and you're like, what is the point of this? And you're watching...
It feels like Neosporin on a cut.
Yeah, and you're watching Poe's Rebellion and you're like, what is the point of this? And then you get to Rey's part and you're like, okay, so I want to say what's the point of this? But I'm enjoying the fact that Luke's on screen and, it's not the Luke that I remember, but at least it's Luke. You got Chewbacca having funny jokes with porgs. It's all right. It's all right. This part's actually pretty. It's like I don't necessarily know if it's good, but it's moments of levity in a movie that's mostly soured by a lot of other elements that just didn't come together right. Now, with that said, we said about this in the last podcast, but like cinematically speaking, Last Jedi is amazing looking.
Best looking Star Wars movie that's ever been made by far.
It looks so good. However, just because it looks good, doesn't mean
it's infallible.
Yeah. I mean, you can take a turd, right?
Yep.
You can put sprinkles on that bad boy, right? You can put whipped cream on that bad boy. You can put a cherry on top. You know what I mean?
Best cherry you've ever seen.
Exactly. And you have a nice looking turd, but at the end of the day, it's still a turd. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter how you decorate it, it's still a turd. So even if it looks really good, the extra elements that go into it are just rough and not. I always say rough instead of like saying something like bad or whatever, because you can't get mad at someone saying rough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But rough, the word rough does cover a lot of different ways of kind of just explaining how you feel about something. It's like, this is just rough. Doesn't mean I hate it. It just means it wasn't done. It's not sharp. It's not clean. It's rough.
It's not quite they didn't stick the landing, is how I always say it. Is like, there's that's some good ideas in episode 8, but they don't quite stick that landing.
And some missed opportunities. Well, a lot of missed opportunities, actually.
I really wanted to see the Knights of Ren. Really wanted to see more of the Knights of Ren in there, and they literally weren't in the movie at all.
So I know that Last Jedi, cinematically speaking, is really good looking. I just wish that, JJ just directed it, because regardless of how you feel about it, about him, or, his style of, the way he makes movies, at the end of the day, it was the beginning of his story. It was episode 7, right? So let him just do episode 8 and 9, I wish they would have just paid him more money just to keep him around, just to do 8 and 9. So even if it wasn't good, at least it would have been more cohesive than what we got. So that's my closing argument on that subject.
It would have been at least one coherent director's vision throughout episode 7, 8, and 9. Like, I think that episode 9 is essentially episode 8 and 9 just jammed into one movie, which I think is why so many people didn't quite enjoy it as much as they probably could have, was because it feels like the second arc in a trilogy, but then a rushed third act of a trilogy.
Yep.
I don't mind that Palpatine comes back. I don't mind that Rey is Palpatine's, granddaughter and all that stuff. That stuff, whatever. Totally cool with me. I can totally suspend my disbelief. If I can believe that metachlorians are a microscopic organism that give Jedi the Force and give Sith the Force, sure, Rey's a Palpatine. Why not? But what I don't like about episode 9 so much is that there's so many great ideas in it that are not fleshed out to their full capability because it's being told within one movie. And I also don't like that Rey is Rey Skywalker at the end of episode 9. Like, that just bothers me so bad, because I'm just like, so Palpatine won. Like, realistically, Palpatine won. Like, his kid had a kid, and his granddaughter is essentially the last very powerful Force user in the galaxy that has been trained. So Palpatine kind of wins, like in a backdoor kind of way, which I don't love, but whatever. It is what it is. I read all I've told you this before. I read all the leaks for episode 9. I was like, whatever. I'll just check it out.
Episode 10, 11, and 12 brings Palpatine back, and then we'll do it again.
Episode 10 is just Palpatine's back, baby. Just go for Palpatine. Episode 10, episode 11.
The dead speaks again.
The beginning of episode 10 is just go play Fortnite to get this aspect of the story.
I actually forgot they did that. Wow.
Yeah, they definitely did that, and that was definitely a decision that was made. That anywhere down the road, someone could have said, "Hey, maybe this isn't a great idea," and nobody was able to stop whatever executive was like, Fortnite's popular. Kids like Fortnite, right? Why don't we just incorporate a major aspect of our Star Wars story into a game that most people don't play?
I feel like that's what every exec is doing right now. They're just like, you know what? The kids like the Fortnite, so let's just get the Fortnite.
Fortnite.
And they
the kids still use the MySpace?
We were going to use the MySpace, but apparently the kids don't use it anymore. So now we use the Fortnite.
The Fortnite.
So we're going to have to start using the TikTok.
Oh, geez.
That TikTok.
Apparently, TikTok is literally just spyware. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I believe it.
Yeah, like I was just reading some article. This is way off topic, but I was reading some article that was like, it turns out that it's basically used as a backdoor tool by the Chinese government to spy on various people from other countries. I'm definitely going to cut this part out of the podcast, but just want to let you know, if you're using TikTok, probably uninstall it from your phone, because they're using it to get a hold of your contacts, your email passwords, all that different stuff, and they're probably not going to use it for good purposes. So
I have every other social media because you have to nowadays when it comes to building a brand or your channel and stuff. But I'm staying away from TikTok as long as I can until I get forced to use it.
And I'm just old, so I don't really understand what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
Kind of that spot too. It's kind of like the new Vine.
Yeah. I wasn't even on board with Vine. Like I didn't really know what Vine was when it was out. Like I've seen some compilations. Pretty quick, easy little question here is, what is your favorite arc in the Clone Wars TV show? So I'll just go ahead and give my really quick answer. More than likely, my favorite arc in the Clone Wars is definitely the Siege of Mandalore. Like it's just insanely beautiful. It's excellent storytelling from beginning, middle to end. And they actually brought back Ray Park, the original Darth Maul, to do motion capture for Darth Maul. So the fighting sequences between Maul and Ahsoka Tano just look so fluent and so smooth that there's no way you can dislike it. It's so like,
I feel like they should go back and just remake the entire series with that type of animation.
With just motion capture.
I know it costs a lot of money, but I would watch again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
For sure.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this. We kind of went over this like very specific meme before, but it's like that Ratatouille meme, like where the food critic is he goes to taste Ratatouille's food for the first time, and it does like a flashback scene to like him as a little kid eating a dish that it's the same exact dish that his mom made for him. And someone made an awesome like super on the nose meme for that Darth Maul fight where Darth Maul pulls out his lightsaber and he pulls his left arm back like in a defensive position, and someone had like the original scene that he did that in episode 1, and it was like the Ratatouille critic as a little kid, and then the Clone Wars episode is Ratatouille critic as an adult. And I was like, that is the perfect analogy, because the first time I saw that, I was like, I'm a little kid again. I'm back in the theater seeing Darth Maul for the first time. This is amazing.
Yeah, it was cool to see that. I just kind of wish the rest of that season was like that, you know.
That first arc is very pointless.
I mean, I didn't mind the first one. Yeah, okay, the second one. What were they thinking?
It was just,
that was a easily 2-episode arc if you want to do one. You know, you could probably do 1 episode, but they could have squeezed that into 2 episodes and then gave us another arc for something else. Like originally there was supposed to be Revan or something in the final season.
Revan and Bane were supposed to be a lot more heavily. Actually, maybe it's Revan and Nihilus.
I thought it was Malik.
I think that we're supposed, because it was supposed to be during the whole stuff with Yoda going to Moraband, he was supposed to like encounter Bane and Revan's ghost. Or maybe I'm like losing my mind. I'll have to Google it. But
okay,
go ahead, continue. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
I know you're good. I thought there was a missing like scene. I'm sure people in the comments or people who follow this, they probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, there was like a deleted scene. They didn't finish it, of course, but it was with Revan. I don't remember who he's talking to or what the whole situation was, but he wasn't in Clone Wars. He was going to be a ghost in Clone Wars. So that would have been cool to kind of introduce him, because if you introduced him to Clone Wars, that means he is officially canon. And for right now, I don't think that he is canon yet. Bane is canon, of course, because he was in the show, but we haven't seen anything about Revan yet as far as the canon goes, I
think the only mention of him in current canon is, I think one of the flagships, like one of like the Star Destroyers in episode 9 is named after Revan. Like all of the starships, I believe are named after Sith Lords. Some of them are Sith Lords that they're like names that we've never seen before. But I believe Revan is one of them. That's pretty cool. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the case.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. I just kind of wish that we would have known that. That's far.
There's a lot of things about episode 9 I wish we would have known.
There's a small little thing. Did you read the extended novel yet of episode 9?
I have not. I don't know if I would read it. I think I'd probably get it on audiobook.
Okay.
I'm currently rereading through Foundation.
I haven't read it, but I want to read it, or I want someone to read it and then tell me the differences between the movie and the book, just to hear the different things. Because they go deeper into why things happened in the book, the way they did. So I just wanted to hear. I'm sure I could look it up somewhere else, but I'd like to have a podcast about it. And someone who
they always add a lot more detail to that stuff. in the books. Like they always add a ton of extra little bits and pieces to all that stuff. Like even the episode 3 novelization is seen as one of like the best book adaptations of a movie, like of all time, basically. Like it adds so much more depth to Anakin and Obi-Wan and all the different stuff. And I actually am curious to see like
Dooku's fight. I had an audiobook of, actually I had that book when I was in elementary school, but I never finished it. But I had the the audiobook. It was on YouTube one time. It got taken down now, but it used to be on YouTube, and I actually listened to the entire thing. And I remember like the Dooku fight is the longest fight in the entire book. In the but in the movie it's like the shortest. So it's like interesting, different elements that had to get cut out from that fight. I actually heard that like that fight was supposed to be a lot longer. That fight with Dooku, Anakin, Obi-Wan was actually cut down because of the restraints of the amount of time George wanted to tell, the movie in. So I would just like Disney to release a full 3-4 hour cut of Revenge of the Sith. I know that they cut out a lot of like the extra like silly stuff that George had originally recorded, but I'm sure there were different elements that we didn't see that would have been really cool to actually see. Like maybe even the conversations between Dooku, Anakin, Obi-Wan in the actual movie is so much more shorter. It's short to the point fight. But in the book they talk as they're fighting. There's more of a back and forth between Anakin and Dooku. So
and it also goes like into the psychology of like what Anakin's going through in that moment.
Yeah, and then
which is very interesting.
You switch places to Dooku, and then you go through Dooku's mind in that chapter, the next chapter, and you actually you see what he's thinking all the way up until he dies, and it's like it's pretty interesting actually.
And I think that everyone should definitely listen to like the Dooku Jedi Lost like audio drama. I think they adapted it into a book, but it was originally it was meant to be like a radio play, like kind of like in the vein of War of the Worlds and stuff like that, stuff that used to take place way before television was invented.
Oh yeah.
So it's completely like voice acted by, different people. It tells a story of Dooku back when he was living on Sereno, to the point where he became a Jedi Knight, to the point where he left the Jedi Order, because they used to have like a list of Jedi previous, like in the old canon, that was like the Lost Jedi. I can't remember what number it was, but there was like a certain amount of Jedi Masters who had left the Jedi Order to either go and join the dark side or to just whatever, go off and do their own thing. But it's a very, very interesting book, and it kind of makes the Jedi Order kind of into almost like a Harry Potter house situation. Like Jedi are divided up into different groups that are essentially like, Gryffindor, Slytherin, and all this different stuff. So it's definitely an interesting take on the Jedi Order, like in their structure and stuff like that. I don't necessarily know that I love it, but I really, really enjoy all the stuff between Dooku and Sifo Dyas. So that if I was to recommend one of the new canon stuff, I would definitely recommend Jedi Lost for sure. Especially
considering like Sifo Dyas actually has a massive role to play in the entire universe, and you don't even meet him once. So it is interesting. I always like that about him though, because like you don't meet him once in the entire movies. You never hear him talked about except for like a couple lines where they explain like he was the one who ordered, but it wasn't actually him. It was Dooku or whatever. But his name, is the reason why the Clone Wars, they had clones. You know what I mean? So it's actually be interesting to kind of explore his character and kind of learn more about him. But one thing about that Revenge of the Sith novelization is I wish they would update it, because while I do like I like the guy, like the writer who wrote that. Like I remember the way he would explain situations are good. Sometimes he would go overboard a little bit. Yeah. Kind of like pad out the book. Like he'd be like, instead of just being like Anakin force pushed Dooku, he'd be like, Anakin reached his arm out and used all of his might to pull the will of the Force up into his mind and then release it from his shoulder to his elbow, then to his hand, then to his fingertips, and outward, which then the Force power would fly over him like a wind turbine, And it was just just say he force pushed him. That's all you got to say.
I think it was Matthew Stover that wrote that, if my memory serves. I think it's the same author who wrote Shatterpoint, which is like a Mace Windu oriented novel.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I think it's Matthew Stover.
It's a good book. It's just sometimes he get a little too
fanciful with the words.
Yeah, I guess
it's like an ongoing joke with like the Thrawn trilogy that the word sardonically is used in basically every other sentence. Like listening to the audiobook, because like when I'm just sitting over at my studio editing or whatever, I'll listen to audiobooks in the background. And I was listening to the Thrawn trilogy, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've heard the word sardonically about 100 times in the last 2 chapters.
Sardonically?
Yeah, and I literally had to Google what the word meant because I don't think I had ever heard it before.
I've never even heard that word before.
Exactly, exactly. But what were we? Oh yeah. So what's your favorite arc in the Clone Wars? If you had to choose one, I completely forgot the question that was asked.
No tangent again. That's all right. Like I said, it's part of our charm to
go on
a long tangent. Okay, so I still say to this day, my favorite arc, the arc that got me into the Clone Wars in the first place, and that is the one where Maul and Savage, where I guess Savage finds Maul, and then Maul and him just go on like this murder spree throughout the galaxy, just doing whatever they want. For me, I wasn't a massive Clone Wars fan until I heard Maul was coming back. And when he did come back, he came back with a bang. And it was almost like when Maul showed up, that's when the show grew up a little bit more. Like it was already kind of showing examples of, being more mature with its audience. But like when Maul shows up, that's when it didn't care if you were mature or not. And it just let Maul be Maul. And I think that's the most important part. And one of my favorite parts about seeing Maul in this last arc that we mentioned, the Mandalore arc, was he was just such a bad dude, and it was so cool to just see him running through clones and slicing them down and cutting off their heads and pulling off their arms just because. And I'm like, yes, this is the Clone Wars. This is the reason why I love Clone Wars. I mean, overall, I like Clone Wars, but when I think of the Maul scenes, it doesn't care if it offends you. It doesn't care if you don't like to see people get decapitated and cut down and die. It's
or headbutted with spiky
head spikes. or get gourded in the stomach with spikes on your head. It didn't care, and that's what I like the most, because that feels the most like George Lucas to me. George Lucas is writing about, especially when it comes to Revenge of the Sith. He of course would always serve the story as much as he could. But, while the story was written for 10, 12-year-olds, you'd say, it's still dynamic to all different ages. And he didn't care if you were 4. He didn't care if you were 50. He told the story he wanted to tell. And if someone had to lose an arm here or there, that's just the way the story needed that. If someone was going to get their head cut off, it needed that, and he wasn't afraid to pull back on that. So I think that's why I like that arc the most. I mean, I do the Mandalore arc is one of my top 5 now, but for me, I don't know what the arc of that one would actually be. I think it's like Brothers. I don't know. Like
where he finds, where the Night Sisters, the Dathomir witches, find Maul all crazy, and he's got the robot legs and stuff like that. And that arc.
I think it might be a couple arcs actually that happened, because Savage finds Maul first, and then they go back on another arc or something, and then he gets new legs, and or they use magic to give him new metal robotic legs that are just like his real legs or something like that. Mm-hmm. I forget the specifics, but wherever you see Maul, that's my favorite arc.
Yeah,
because he's just so good.
Maul in that show, he gets so much more fleshed out, that he's a way more interesting character.
He's actually a character.
Yeah, he's actually a character. He's not just literally the embodiment of what you would think a Sith Lord would look like, because it's running along that parallel of Darth Vader was this big bad, he's clad in all black armor and has a really intimidating mask and demeanor. So like the natural expansion of that would be a guy who's just literally covered in tattoos and like looks like the devil. So it adds a lot more depth to him to the point where it builds up to the point where I could believe that he would lead, Mandalorians. Like I could believe that he would inspire, people would flock to him because he's powerful. And he's not just powerful, but he's also intelligent and cunning. And what I like so much about the Mandalore arc is that I really, really enjoy seeing Maul come to the realization that he's like, oh, I understand now. Like I get what Palpatine was doing. Like now I sense through the Force what he's actually done, what his actual master plan was, and seeing him and Ahsoka like running, in parallel, seeing like the way they both are reacting to the new order of the galaxy, seeing Maul just literally says like there's a new power in the galaxy and neither one of us can do anything to stop this from happening. So we're both kind of on the same team now. So come with me now. Let's join forces. Yeah. Like I just love seeing that. I love seeing Maul be his own person and not necessarily being a slave to Palpatine anymore.
Yeah, he is definitely. It's crazy because you would have told me back in like 2005 that Maul was going to return and be one of the best characters out of the Clone Wars. I would not believe you. I'd think you're joking. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Because Maul at that point wasn't alive yet. I think they only brought him back in like 2010, 2011,
something like that. Because I think that the Clone Wars show, the movie came out in 2009. I want to say 2009 or 2008.
Okay, yeah. So then he came around in season 4, I believe. He showed up. So it would have been like 2011, 2012 that happened.
Yeah.
Or he showed up. So, yeah. And I remember, like, if you told me back, Revenge of the Sith came out. If you told me Maul was still alive and he was going to have a massive impact on, like, the rest of the elements that go with, the Clone Wars and different dynamics with, like, different characters like that, I would not believe you. Because he was just a blank slate. He was there just to die.
Yep.
And, it's cool that they could do that with a character. Now, here's another fun fact for you, little history lesson. There was this one time when I was a kid. There was me and my buddies would always get together. We'd have like lightsaber fights with our little plastic lightsabers or whatever. I had to have been maybe like 10 or 11 at the time. So we were all hanging out, and we were making like different like Jedi, different Sith. Like we're like, what if time travel happened and all these characters came over? So we had like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Anakin, Luke, and I don't know, maybe like Mace Windu, Yoda, whatever, on one side. And then we would have like Darth Vader on one side. We'd have Darth Sidious on one side. We'd have Darth Maul. We'd have Dooku, except for with Dooku, we brought him back. We gave him a robotic body. So he could come back. It makes sense for our certain story. And we were trying to think of another guy to bring back. Because we're like, we're only doing Sith, so we can't do Grievous, right? And I was thinking, like, you know what? Let's give Darth Maul a brother. And let's make him yellow instead of red. And we're going to call him Darth.
Darth.
So, and this is back in 2005, right? So think about it. I created the idea of Savage Oppress way before he showed up in the TV shows. So in a way, I guess it's Disney now. They owe me money because I made Savage Oppress technically. So I'm still waiting for that check to come in.
I was going to say that you kind of also, you and your friends kind of wrote The World Between Worlds before Rebels ever came out.
You're right. I'm waiting for a bigger check now. Thank you for bringing that
up. You're in line to get a lot of money from Lucasfilm.
And I remember thinking that. I forgot about it, and someone was like, oh, Savage has his new brother. I'm like, what? I looked, and it was a yellow Zabrak. And I don't think they're called Zabraks anymore. They're just called, like, Dathomirian men or something like that. But
I think that there's like a throwaway line in the Clone Wars where they say, oh no, Zabraks are still from Iridonia, but these Zabrak, they're the Night Brothers from Dathomir. Okay. So I think there is a throwaway line to say that like Zabraks are still from
I do kind of explain that. Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's a little fun fact for you. I created Savage without realizing I created him. But his name was Darth. Back then.
Darth. Truly wonderful, the mind of a child is, or whatever it was that Yoda said.
Yeah, we had fun.
But with that being said, do you have any closing thoughts for the pod? Anything you're working on? Anything you got coming up?
Yeah, so just like before, I'm still working on my What If Order 66 Failed. It's my own personal like fan fiction I've been writing. I'm on chapter 10. That's actually supposed to be coming out this Saturday, so I hope it works out that way. I guess it all depends how the situation goes with my personal life, but
if you have enough time to devote to recording and scripting out this whole thing.
Yeah, well, I'm making me and my dad and my brother-in-law are getting together. We're putting together like a massive playhouse for my daughter. So that's kind of what my week has been like so far. So I haven't had much time to actually work on content, but I definitely plan to push it out. If it's not this Saturday, next Saturday. So if you guys are fans of fan fictions, what ifs, whatever like that, go check out Net Alliance on YouTube. Also, there'll be a link in the description below to my channel, possibly.
Sure will be.
Yeah. So go check that out. You might enjoy it. So there you go.
So with that being said, I had one personal question from somebody on the Discord where they just asked, when's the next KOTOR video coming out? So my original plan when I first started doing YouTube videos for Barb's Basement was I wanted to upload 2 videos a week. I wanted to upload at least one for Legacy, one for KOTOR, or one that was just a random video, essay on some random movie I like. I'm currently thinking about making a video on the Foundation series. So Foundation was a huge influence on me as a teenager. I believe I first read the very first Foundation book when I was 13, I want to say. And it's one of the few books. I mean, it's not a super huge book. It's like 230 pages or something like that. It's a very, very light read, but it's got a lot of major interesting themes in it. And it's one of the first science fiction novels that I remember reading and being, truly blown away by. That and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. It's the book that inspired the film Blade Runner. Everyone should read that book. It's incredible. It's one of my all-time favorite stories, but I'm thinking about mixing it up and not just being Star Wars content, because the original idea behind Barb's Basement was to have it just be about nerd stuff. So Net and myself, I've talked to you about I want to, let's maybe do a podcast on Lord of the Rings or, whatever.
I am down.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking about doing a video essay on Foundation because it's about to be made into a show, and it's one of the best book series that I've ever read. And I'm also thinking about doing a few videos on Philip K. Dick books, because Philip K. Dick is a massive influence on my life. He's also a massive influence on tons of movies and science fiction movies just in general in pop culture. You Google one of his books, more than likely it's either been adapted into a movie or people have considered adapting it into a movie. But so I'd be interested to see what people think, if they want to see other science fiction stuff that's not just sci-fi fantasy like Star Wars. But other than that, KOTOR will be coming out this week. I got it scripted. I have all the voiceover recorded for it. It's just a matter of actually being able to sit down and edit it, which Net can attest that is quite a feat. It takes quite a while to actually edit a video together. But other than that, I believe that's all we got. So make sure that you get your questions in for next week. So either put those questions in the Discord, feel free to email us, comment on the video, and there's a chance that your questions will be featured on the podcast, and we'll answer all of your various questions, whether it be about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, whatever. We'll eventually get around to it. Here's hoping. But tune in next week. The podcast will be uploaded every single Wednesday, and we hope to see you guys again.
Yeah, sounds good. Catch you guys later. Peace.